Hey guys, it's Chelsea, and today I'm going to talk about borderline personality disorder. So I'm really nervous about making this video. So a disclaimer before I go into this video, I will be referencing the DSM-4 and the official criteria, and I have done a lot of research, but obviously, in my opinion, obviously, I'm not a mental health professional. BPD is my primary diagnosis, and it is the one that has had the biggest impact on my life. It is the hardest one to recover from, specifically because there really is no medication that can help. It's all about relearning new behaviors. There's a special kind of therapy called DBT, which stands for dialectic behavioral therapy. I'll make a whole video about that, and I want to share so many lessons I've learned in DBT. I'm currently almost a quarter of the way through a 48-week DBT program, so I'm like feeling really good about that. I have so many things that I want to share, it's hard for me to stay focused. So let's get to the point. Frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. I would say that historically this is presented for me as usually a leave others before they can leave you. I've had so many people in my life that I think I pushed away because I was so afraid of losing them. And it's the fact that you will do crazy things to get people not to leave you, that you'll self-harm or you'll act out in some sort of severe and traumatic way, usually ends up pushing those people further away and makes things worse for yourself. But at the time it feels like it's like I have to do anything to keep this person in my life. What can I do right now that's going to force them to stay here? A pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships. You hurt the ones you love the most. You tend to be in very intense relationships. This was a big thing for me because I never realized that, that was a symptom of my mental illness. I had all of these relationships, and some through the fault of my own and some through the fault of the other party. They weren't healthy, they weren't stable, they were very intense. I feel everything so intensely. When I love you, and when I hate you, I hate you. And that's like the big thing I think with borderline personality disorder is just the extremes, is that you feel everything so intensely, and obviously that makes relationships very difficult. And obviously someday I think I can be in a healthy relationship, but for now, it's just true. Our relationships are fucking hard. The third symptom is identity disturbance, such as a significant and persistent unstable self-image or sense of self. Again, I think this relates a lot to the splitting that people with BPD tend to do, the sort of black and white thinking. We apply it not only to the people in our lives, but to ourselves. I will hate myself or I will love myself. There's not a lot of middle ground. I spend most of my time in the hate self category. I don't know how to explain it without making it sound like it's sort of split personalities, because that is honestly what it feels like. Like I don't know if I have ever felt like one cohesive person. I've always felt like 20 different Chelseas, but they are 20 different Chelseas, and that's what makes it different from a split personality. It's not like, oh, Jessica is doing this and Jessica's my other personality. No, it's like it's always Chelsea. But I feel like a different person in different contexts. It is so fucking hard. Like, imagine being a young 20-something and trying to figure out who you are and what your place in the world is. That shit's hard. Everyone goes through that. Throwing on top of mental illness, where like one of the main symptoms is that you constantly don't have a sense of self. I'll often feel like I start to understand myself, and then I just lose a grip on that. I can't really explain what happens, but it's like one day I wake up and the person that I was gone, and there's this new person. And then there is some amount of just like general disassociating and not feeling human. Symptom 4, impulsivity in at least 2 areas that are potentially self-damaging. Overspending, being sexually promiscuous, reckless driving, binge eating, substance abuse. I don't know if I touched on that one yet. The impulsivity is honestly what I think makes borderline personality disorder so dangerous. You don't have this sense of self, so it's like, who fucking cares? Like, I think the sense of self gives you a sense of future. And when you have neither of those, you just impulsively make bad decisions. Recurrent suicidal behavior, gestures, or threats, or self-mutilating behavior. BPD has super high instances of suicide, especially of attempts. Most people with BPD will attempt suicide at least once. Many will attempt it even more times. I myself had 3 suicide attempts over the span of 6 months. This is the part of mental illness that I feel like is so misunderstood, and people say so many judgmental and terrible things about people who have attempted suicide. In that moment, no one else exists, nothing else exists. It's hard to even think of the world as real, and in that moment you just, instinct takes over. And unfortunately, the instincts that I developed were not instincts of self-preservation. They were instincts of self-mutilation. Emotional instability due to significant reactivity of mood. I think I've covered this a lot. I went through a lot of high school and college thinking that I maybe had bipolar disorder. I did a lot of research into it. I had never heard of BPD and I had no idea what it was. And bipolar was really the only other disorder I knew that had extreme fluctuations in emotion. Because I could look at myself and recognize this wasn't just depression, it wasn't just anxiety. Because when I'm happy, oh my god, I'm fucking happy. I would say like a graph of my emotions on any given day is like this. Chronic feelings of emptiness. And I think it might be because you feel all those extremes so much that when I'm not feeling extremely sad or extremely happy, it's sort of like, what am I? Like my neutral just feels very empty. I don't know how else to describe it. I feel so apathetic. I feel empty, and then I feel not real, and then I feel distant, and then it's just kind of a cycle. Inappropriate, intense anger, or difficulty controlling anger. So it's really hard for me to identify with anger because I've spent my whole life pushing that emotion down and pushing it aside and probably even lying to myself. It's become the most fascinating thing in therapy, the number of times that I'll be talking about an issue with my therapist, and we'll go through talking about all the emotions involved and, you know, like, okay, describe what your body's feeling in that moment, describe all these things, let's get to the core of what the problem is. And there's so much anger. And yeah, and that scares me, and it's upsetting and confusing as well, because I've always identified as the opposite of an angry person. Like if I think about like the things that I've done to myself, like I had to be angry, because you wouldn't hurt yourself so badly unless you had some kind of rage, you know, and that might not be true for everyone, but that's how I feel. Transient stress-related paranoid thoughts or severe dissociative symptoms. I feel like I've covered this basically. Someone could cancel plans, someone could take a long time to message you back, but if you have borderline personality disorder, it feels like, you know, all of a sudden they don't love you, and they never did, and they're leaving, and what did you do? Someone can say something without giving it a second thought, and it'll make me question completely my relationship with them, my relationship with myself, and I'll immediately start thinking that I've done something wrong or that I'm a terrible person. I will assume that I fucked up royally and that like I'm gonna lose you. Honestly, a lot of this is just so hard for me to talk about because it's embarrassing. There are very few therapists that are willing to work with clients who have BPD because we are incredibly difficult, and it's hard to love someone with BPD because we are incredibly difficult, because we hurt the people that we care the most about. Although I have done some really horrible things in the past and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I worry about all the people that I've hurt because I have this disorder, that I know that someday I can be recovered, and someday I will not be the person with borderline personality disorder who hurts everyone they've ever loved. That someday I will be able to engage in healthy relationships and happy relationships and not hurt the people I care about. Just the fact that I made people bear witness to my self-destruction really hurts me. Which I think is why it's important now for me to allow more people to bear witness to my recovery. I got a little emotional talking about hurting people I've loved, because obviously that's something that hurts me a lot. I think that's an important thing to know about people with BPD. People often say that they're heartless, they don't care, they'll hurt anyone, they only care about themselves. And that's so not true. I keep staring over here because I'm thinking about all the other videos I want to make, since I didn't really enjoy making this one. So many of the things that I want to talk about are related to my treatment, or they're related to my illnesses. And so I needed to do this video. If you're still watching, congratulations, you've made it through me blabbering about BPD for too long. Hopefully I've edited this down quite a bit, because right now I've been doing this for, oh dear God, like a little over an hour. It's not that bad. Alright guys, have a really good week. No matter what state you're in right now, I believe that things can and do get better. I've always hated the people that said that, and now I'm one of them. But like, really, things do get better. Bye guys.